Did the Lions waste too many third-round draft picks on Isaac Teslaa? That's my first question for you. Was it a giant waste? Because I'm going to say something that is just absolutely crazy. And that is that the Lions have a problem with too much speed, too many playmakers. Someone's going to sit on the bench, and there's not enough snaps to go around. With this new offense that's coming to town, the 13 and the 12 personnel, the 13 and the 12 jumbo, you need more tight ends. There is a solution, and it involves free agency, the draft, and a player already on the roster. I'm going to break down the Isaac Teslaa trap right now.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
I told you it was going to be crazy, and converting a wide receiver to tight end, it doesn't happen all the time. Matter of fact, it rarely ever happens, but there's a few names that I'm going to give you. I'll briefly touch on their history in the league, but it doesn't happen a lot. Converting Isaac Teslaa to a tight end is nuts. I get it. A lot of you are probably like, what are you thinking, dude? Here's what I'm thinking. It's not just possible that you could do this. It's actually optimal usage for a player with his athletic profile. I mean, he's 6'4". He's a 9.9 plus on the RAS score. He's got 4.43 speed, a little bit leaner frame, but he's over 215 pounds already. Isaac Teslaa is closer to a tight end than he is further away. If you take Isaac Teslaa and you add 10 pounds of some lean muscle, you have a weapon on the offense, and he already has been a weapon. So what are you going to do? Are you going to replace J-Mo snaps with Teslaa? Are you going to trade J-Mo away to give Teslaa more opportunity? It's doubtful that you're going to have three wides on the field very often. So what is the goal, right? Like what does a team do? What does a GM have to do to make all this work? And what does a coach need to change to make it all work? Well, the GM's going to have to make some trades, right? He's going to have to bring some guys in. He's going to have to give some guys away. He's going to have to find some guys in the draft. What about your own roster? Who's going to stick around? Who's he going to get rid of? And who can you convert and turn into a weapon here in 2026? Now, I know what you're thinking. This is nuts. Will, you're nuts. What a waste of third-round picks, right, for Isaac Teslaa and my time. But just do me a favor. Before you turn off the video, just do me the courtesy and listen to my reasons. And I'll give you a hint. Isaac Teslaa would still be a receiving tight end at the end of the day. In this scenario, this is more about scheme leverage than anything else. And in the NFL, everything is about leverage, and you're darn right, it requires scheme. So let's start with the blueprint. How does it work? Wide receiver to tight end conversion, the modern NFL move tight end is where I essentially see Isaac Teslaa falling into a big wide receiver, right? That the big wide receiver by size, 6'4", 215, bump him up to 220, 225, who's willing to hit people. That's all it comes down. He just has to be willing to hit some people. The transition doesn't mean he turns into an offensive lineman. It doesn't mean that he's turning into a big Brock Wright. It means that he changes who he blocks and who covers him. That's the key. It's who covers him. So if Isaac Teslaa is marching out there and he's not getting DBs or safeties and he ends up with linebackers on him, that's a huge win. That's the goal. And that is what the Lions are going to need to try to do with the 13 scheme, the 12 scheme. That's the whole goal. You're trying to trap their bigger players on the field. But before I get ahead of myself here, let's talk about the weight gain for a moment. 10 to 15 pound range. Can a player do it? Absolutely. It's a spot on assessment, in my opinion, for a player that's 215 pounds already. Isaac Teslaa, 6'4", 215. Sam Laporta is 6'3", 235. What is the difference between Isaac Teslaa and Sam Laporta? 20 pounds. That's it. Because if you were to line both of them up next to each other and have them run the same routes and get fed the same ball, I bet you Isaac Teslaa is probably going to come down with a lot more of them. And he's probably going to make a lot more plays out in open field. And he runs way faster than Sam Laporta does. And even if you put on 20 pounds, I bet you Teslaa is still going to be sub 4.5, which is faster than almost any other tight end in the league. So this is a game-changing opportunity. If you can get him up to 230, great. If you can get him to 222, 223, it's plenty fine. I'm not asking Teslaa to go out there, like I said, and be Brock Wright. That's not the goal, right? The goal is just to leverage the offensive scheme against the defense to force bigger, bulkier linemen onto the field so that you can take advantage of them as an entire offense. Remember, we're leveraging scheme. So 200, 225, 222, 230, whatever it is, it's big enough. It's heavy enough to crack a linebacker or a safety or a cornerback or a slot guy, whoever lines up in front of him. And it still might be enough to maintain his speed. 4.43 might drop back to 4.47. It could drop all the way back to 4.50. I doubt it, but it could. But that speed is still an advantage for Isaac Teslaa in this offense. Now, there's a learning curve. Tight end is not an easy position. It's one of the hardest parts of, hardest positions to learn in the league. And honestly, the hardest part for Isaac Teslaa is not going to be catching the football. It's going to be learning how to block and who to block, but most importantly, how to block those defensive ends if he gets matched up with one that becomes his primary objective. Now, I've seen Teslaa get erased a couple of times last season by defensive ends. And in most cases, look, you're not asking a Teslaa to take one of these guys and drive them back 5 yards. Again, no Brock Wright. You're just asking them to slip a chip, drop a hip. That's it. Just slow these guys up, become a nuisance. Just be a little bit of an annoying obstacle, if you will, in front of these defensive ends. That's all you're asking them to do. All you're asking Teslaa to do. Now, there's some historical precedents with this. There are some success stories in the NFL. There is a path that has been worn by a few players in similar frames to Isaac Teslaa. Now, Darren Waller is the one that I mentioned the other day. 6'6", 238 pounds. He didn't become 238 pounds right away, but he was 6'6" when he entered the league. And within, I think, the first year or so, he started to fail at making any sort of an impact at wide receiver. So they converted him. He put on like 15, 20 pounds, became a mismatch nightmare because linebackers couldn't run with him. He still maintained the majority of his speed. Now, he's a couple inches taller than Teslaa, much wider frame. I get that, but it's a name to talk about because I've already seen and read nobody transitions to a tight end from receiver. Will, you're nuts. Well, I'm not, and there's proof. I'll give you a couple more names. Juwan Johnson from the Saints. He entered the league as a big wide receiver, 6'4", and then he worked his way up to 230 pounds, converted to a tight end. He's not a dominant blocker, but he was a red zone weapon. That's what they utilized him for. He functioned as a tight end in name, but he was a wide receiver in practice, in practicality. And then there was Ricky Seals-Jones, converted from a wide receiver to a tight end purely based on his frame. He had a solid career. He was a rotational F tight end back when he played. So the goal is weaponizing Teslaa, right? That's the goal in heavy 13 personnel. This is where Teslaa shines. 13 personnel, if you don't know, it's one running back, 3 tight ends, only 1 wide receiver. Now, of course, if you trot out Amon-Ra St. Brown, Isaac Teslaa, and 2 more tight ends, along with the rest of your personnel, a defense may look at that and say, okay, that's not 13. They're in 12. But when he goes and lines up and runs the routes that he's going to run, or initially picks up blocks, right, to kind of throw the defense off the trail, and you start running the football, when he goes in, they're going to think, okay, he's coming in, they're going to run the football. And then all of a sudden you flip it on him. And you start passing that ball, he free release, gets around that linebacker, you hit him in the seam. And normally, when defenses do see that, 3 tight ends walk on the field, that's when they panic the most, right? They sub in their heavy package, they bring in more linebackers, fewer DBs. Their goal is to stop the run. That is where the Teslaa trap comes into play. Like I just mentioned, if Teslaa is one of those 3 tight ends on the field, you have broken the defense's rules. You're going to slip behind at some point. You're going to use this leverage against the defense. Scenario A, I think that the defense stays heavy, right? They stay heavy, linebackers on the field, you split Teslaa out wide, or you put him down in the slot. It's a mismatch. 250-pound linebacker who runs a 4.7, 4.5, 4.55, 4.6, now has to cover Teslaa in his 4.43, 4.45 speed. That's automatic win for the offense. Automatic. You throw it to him on the seam route, the wheel routes, or the crossers, wherever, he runs away from them. Absolutely. Scenario B, when the defense goes small, all right, they say, okay, you guys got us. Next time you bring that package in, we're going to go small. We're going to bring in the nickel to dime. They're going to treat Teslaa like a wide receiver, and then they're going to bring in that small corner to cover him. And what do? You check down to a run play. You go small, we go big. right? So now you have 3 tight ends and a running back mauling this little defense in front of you. So even if Teslaa is only an okay blocker, he's 6'4", potentially 225 at this point, he'll be just fine to go and handle a couple of linebackers or a couple of cornerbacks at 190. You line him up, where he needs to be. He picks and chooses, what his assignment is on that play, who his assignment is on that play by lining up where where eventually where he ends up lined up is what I'm trying to say. How do you manage the snaps, though? Wide receiver versus tight end. It's a good question. I did see it posed a couple of times in some of the comments. You don't have to remove him from the wide receiver room at all, period. You don't. You need to split them, between the rooms. The tight end room and the wide receiver room are split, but he's going to have to spend time in both. You have to treat him as this hybrid, better yet, let's call him an OW, right? We're just going to call him an offensive weapon because that's what he would be. Base downs, 1st and 10. He could align as the F tight end, the wing, or the slot. He effectively plays wide receiver, but he gets credit for being in, the tight end role. Passing downs, 3rd and long, you can motion him out. He can be the X or the Z in the receiver spot. Red zone, this is the money maker, man. That's the money down. Or the money zone. You can line him up in the heavy run formation. You can do play action fakes. You can slip Teslaa into the back of the end zone. Linebackers are going to bite on the run 9 times out of 10, and Teslaa is just too fast, and he's going to beat those guys. They won't be able to recover. So I've got a question for you. If you were managing the roster, and you're bringing in this new offense, which is expected to be more, how do I put it, run centric, big personnel centric, the bigger jumbo 12, jumbo 13. What would you do, or would you move him to tight end on the depth chart to exploit the mismatch? Would you do that? But train him maybe as a big slot? Would you make sure he gets that 10 to 15 pound weight gain? It's really mandatory for him to be able to do it. But the question is, would you do it or would you not do it? If you were making the roster move, let me know in the comments below. Would you make Isaac Teslaa gain 10 to 15 pounds if you knew he wasn't going to lose a whole lot of speed and he was still going to be a weapon for you in the passing game by leveraging the scheme and the roster against defenses? Teslaa and the trap that it presents can be a game changer for the Lions in 26. Thank you for joining. Please subscribe and like and hype on your way out. Appreciate y'all. Go on, probably go Detroit Lions. We'll see you. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down.